Good evening. My name is Abigail Eddy, and I'm currently serving as your AQHYA First Vice President. Tonight, I couldn't be more excited to be helping host our 2024 AQHYA Public Policy Committee webinar. We will be covering a wide variety of topics, ranging from what public policy really is to current legislation affecting our industry, and even covering how we can all become a little bit more involved and contact our own legislators. This year's committee consists of myself, as well as Lizzie Smith, who is our Region 4 Director, Lauren Goolsby, who is our Region 5 Director, and Taylor Breland, who is our Region 9 Director.
Our first topic will be, what is public policy? Public policy is actually defined as the principles, which are often unwritten, on which social laws are based. We will discuss a few key attributes of public policy that everyone should know. First, policy is made on behalf of the public. This means that every law concerns everyone in some way. Next, policy is oriented toward a goal or desired state, such as a solution to a problem. When a problem is created or found, the next step is to solve it. There's always a problem that needs to be solved, and it is important to be informed of these problems that concern us. Third, policy is made in response to an issue or problem that requires attention. When problems surface, lawmakers go to work to find the solution. Laws are made to ensure that certain problems do not surface again. Last, but certainly not least, policy is ultimately made by the government. If the ideas for the laws come from an outside government or through the interaction between the government and the public, the policy is still ultimately made by the government. All of these key attributes of public policy are extremely important to keep and represent, and thankfully, American Quarter Horses have awesome representatives. The American Quarter Horse Political Action Committee has the goal of educating members of Congress about the size and scope of the American quarter horse industry. In addition to AQHA's Policy Action Committee, we have partners that help us in our efforts to inform lawmakers. The National Cattlemen Beef Association and the American Horse Council are two of our biggest partners, as we, many times, share similar stances on pieces of legislation. For example, the American Horse Council stated, the American Horse Council believes that the more opportunities available to us to use horses in various activities means the better the overall health of the industry and those who participate. This is just one example of how we share similar views. Having partners within the agricultural industry has helped us to shine positive light on legislation that would help our industry. A few of these legislation topics are as follows: animal welfare, equine-assisted activities and therapy, guest worker visas, recreation and trails, sports betting, and tax. All of these are important to the American quarter horse. Animal welfare ensures the equine is cared for. Equine-assisted activities and therapy allows physically and mentally challenged individuals to find strength, healing, and independence through the power of connection with horses. Guest worker visas allow employers to obtain permission to hire foreign workers on temporary visas after engaging in United States recruitment and promising to meet certain requirements. This allows farmers and plantation owners to hire foreign workers. Recreation and trail laws allow the public to use public property for various activities, including hiking, cycling, and of course, horseback riding. The public property can interconnect with state parks, forests, wildlife areas, nature preserves, or other places of scenic or historic interest. Sports betting allows the public to predict sports results and place a wager on the outcome. We can relate this to equine with the sport of racing. This allows business to enter the state and allows tax revenue, which can generate funds for various state resources, including public roads, highways, and education. Lastly, we will discuss tax. Taxes can be included on breeding fees and transactions involving shares and horses. These are just topics, however. There are many legislative issues within the horse industry. A few legislative issues affecting the horse industry today are as follows: animal welfare, health and regulations, appropriate legislation, racing legislation, taxes, and trails. The American Horse Council has conducted a current study called the Economic Impact Study. This study is used to account for the number of horses in the United States. Currently, legislation, funding, and all decisions related to equine happening in Washington, D.C. are based on a census conducted by USDA. The census finds that roughly 3 million horses are in the United States. However, the American Horse Council found that over 6.5 million horses live in the United States. The USDA has only accounted equines on production farms, which are defined as breeding fees, stud fees, or other fees related to the production farm. This means that all horses that are for pure recreation are not included in this count, which indicates that there are considerably more horses living in the United States. In fact, many of my horses wouldn't be counted in the USDA's report, as I don't necessarily make a profit with my horse every year, and I'm sure the same is true for many of our members. By completing this impact study, we can now track how many horses we have, their location, and their impact on the United States economy. The study found that horses add a total value of $103 billion to the United States economy and have a total employment impact of 880,000 jobs.
Thank you so much, Taylor. Now that we've had the opportunity to learn a little bit more about what public policy really is, we will have the opportunity to talk about a few pieces of current legislation affecting the horse industry. The first piece of legislation we will be talking about is the Farm Bill. The Farm Bill is a piece of legislation that is passed every 5 years through our United States government, and it helps to ensure that lots of different programs continue to have adequate funding. It entails everything from SNAPs programs all the way up into smaller agricultural-based programs that help young and uprising farmers. The last Farm Bill was supposed to be passed in 2023, but due to quite a few delays and a few different viewpoints, it has moved back into the current year of 2024, and so our hope is that it will be passed in 2024. This year's Farm Bill has a lot of good provisions and allocations of funds that we foresee will really help not only the equine industry but the agricultural community as a whole, and so we're really excited about that. A few of which include increased support and scope of disaster relief programs. These kind of programs will help to ensure that a wider variety of farms have access to larger amounts of disaster relief, whether it's due to natural disaster or something of that nature. This year's Farm Bill also currently says that it will have new resources for young or beginning farmers and ranchers who might not have the same resources that people who have been farming and ranching for lots of generations have, and so that's really exciting. And then finally, increased funding for the Market Access Program and Foreign Market Development Programs. These are two programs that we think will help to allow AQHYA and the equine industry as a whole to market horses internationally, to really open up the scope of who we market our horses to. And so that's something that we think would help our industry a lot. And those are all things that are currently seen or have been seen in drafts of this year's Farm Bill. So that's something that we're pretty excited about. But what the main topic of concern is with the Farm Bill is that we are really hoping that it will be able to be passed this year. It can be quite a hefty piece of legislation to get passed, as it is so intricate and covers so many different varieties of topics, and so it really affects such a large and diverse group of people because agriculture affects everyone, and so it can be definitely difficult to pass, and so we're excited to see such a large push to get it finished up this year. Whenever we were visiting Washington, D.C. on our annual trip, we were actually there the week right before the House marked up the Farm Bill, so that was really interesting to see kind of how everyone thought the markup would go. And in fact, we actually got to meet with the House Committee on Agricultural Chairman, G.T. Thompson, and so that was really interesting to see. He seemed very excited about and optimistic about getting the Farm Bill done this year, so we were quite excited to see that. In fact, after we left and the Farm Bill was marked up in the House's report, we saw a quote from GT that said, "A Farm Bill is too important to let slip any further, including into next year. Farm and ranch families cannot wait." And we are really excited to see that there's such a large push to get wrapped up this year. We know it's a daunting task, so we're excited about that. The next piece of legislation we will be talking about is the AQHYA Act, which stands for America's Outdoor Recreation Act. This is a piece of legislation that advocates for additional separation between different uses of federal trails. During the American Horse Council Equine Economic Impact Study, they found that recreation was by far the largest sector of the equine industry. During COVID, we saw a large increase in the amount of people, both horse enthusiasts and non alike, using federal trails as a way to get outside and enjoy themselves even during a world pandemic. However, this led to additional usage of trails and the potential for overcrowding. With the increase of people using federal trails, we have noticed that people, whether they're riding horses or walking or hiking or even using motor vehicles such as motorcycles and ATVs, have all been on the same trails, and this creates large and very unsafe situations. For me personally, I know that if I went on a trail ride and a motor vehicle came up behind my horse, she would probably get a little bit nervous, and it would definitely not be a safe situation, as she would probably get spooked. And this is likely similar for horses across the United States. We think that by having additional separation between different uses of trails, so being able to say that these trails are best for people who are walking or hiking, and that these other ones are best for people who want to utilize motor vehicles, and these other ones are best for people who want to be on horseback, would not only allow for additional safety for us as horsemen and our horses, but also for everyone else who's utilizing the trails. The SAFE Act is another piece of legislation we have been talking about for a couple of years now. The SAFE Act stands for Saving America's Forgotten Equines, and it is a piece of legislation that would make it permanently illegal to process horses in the United States, as well as to transport them across international borders to Canada and Mexico for the purposes of processing. AQHYA opposes this piece of legislation out of fear for abandonment and neglect. Currently, it is an end-of-life option to transport horses for this purpose across borders, and we believe that if it was no longer a option for end of life, that we would see a large amount of horses, an additional amount of horses undergoing abandonment and neglect, just because not everyone can continuously care for a large animal throughout their whole life. And so even though people at one point maybe wanted to have horses, there might come a point in their life where something comes up and they no longer have the means to care for them. And so this is an end-of-life option for those horses currently, but we believe if it was not an option, that in those cases, which it's quite a few cases, then we would see abandonment and neglect happening. And although that there are sanctuaries in the United States, they are rapidly filling up, and we know that without this option, they would very soon reach capacity, and the amount of abandonment and neglect would skyrocket. And so we advocate against this piece of legislation. The final two pieces of legislation that we will be talking about today are the Death Tax Repeal Act and the Combating Illicit Xylazine Act. The Death Tax Repeal Act is a piece of legislation that would repeal the estate tax that was passed just a couple of years ago. The estate tax is a tax that families have to pay whenever someone in their family passes away and they want to inherit possessions. This really can affect farmers and ranchers, however, who might not necessarily have the financial means to pay the tax if they want to continue on owning and utilizing their family farm. For example, if my grandparents passed away, then whenever my parents and myself wanted to inherit the family farm, if we wanted to continue to run and use the family farm, we would have to pay a large estate tax for however much the government deemed our family farm was worth. However, that can oftentimes be a very lofty number, And as someone who has a lot of their money either tied up in horses or in other farm and ranch type avenues, it would be very hard, or in some cases not even possible, for these families to pay the tax. And so it causes a lot of families to have to let go of their family farm just due to the fact that they don't necessarily have enough money to pay an estate tax when their relatives pass away. AQHA supports the repeal of the estate tax to help alleviate the burden on family-owned farm, ranches, and businesses. Last but not least is the Combating Illicit Xylazine Act. This is a newer piece of legislation as the problem has only really arose in the last couple of years. However, xylazine is a type of drug that has been used widely across the veterinary field for many, many years. It helps to sedate not only horses, but all farm animals, especially cattle, to help sedate them in either situations where they might be unsafe or they just need to go in for veterinarian procedure. However, in more recent years, with the fentanyl crisis in larger cities, we have noticed that people have started using xylazine along with other drugs, and xylazine is definitely not made for humans and can cause very, very severe side effects and even possibly death. And so that is why there is this piece of legislation to make xylazine a much harder to access drug than it currently is. Like I said, it's used widely across the veterinarian field, and so currently it's fairly easy to get your hands on. Anyone can purchase it right now. You could probably find it at like a Tractor Supply, any of those kind of places. And so if you were trying to use it for unsafe purposes, it would be fairly easy to get access to it. This piece of legislation would make it much harder to get access to it, which would be very good in some cases. However, it would also make it harder for veterinarians to do their job, as this is one of the main sedatives that's used across the veterinarian industry. However, currently in the legislation, there is an exception for veterinarian use, and so we currently support this piece of legislation. However, if the carve out for veterinarian use to allow it to still be accessible for them was removed, then we would not support it, just due to the fact that this is one of the very main sedatives that's used across the agricultural industry. Now I'm going to hand it over to Lizzie to tell us a little bit more about how you can contact your legislators.
Hi, my name is Lizzie, and I'm going to be talking about how to contact legislators and how you can have a voice in the equine industry. We are experts with our horses, and we can help educate lawmakers because they may not be as educated in the equine topics. Knowing what goes on behind the scenes and what affects our equine partners is super important. Involvement in the Horse Council, American Horse Council, and the Association of Equine Practitioners can help you be more educated on equine legislation. Reaching out to lawmakers to become a good point of contact can also be helpful. Lawmakers want to hear from us because we are the youth and future voters. Sharing your story with lawmakers can help impact what they sharing your story with lawmakers can help impact what they think. For example, I've been showing for basically my whole life and since I could sit up. And I've been a part of the AQHYA Youth Board for 2 years now, and that has helped my leadership, responsibility, honestly, most of my skills tremendously. It's important that we reach out to senators and lawmakers and share our voices with them. Below are 2 links to help you contact your national level legislators. If I could read it. www.house.governments/representatives/find your representative. You can use this link to find your representatives. The next one is www.senate.gov/senators/senators contact.htm. You can use those to contact lawmakers by phone call, email, letter, and more. AQHYA and NRHYA have been privileged to go to DC and educate lawmakers on equine topics for so many years. We get to meet with industry partners such as American Horse Council and National Cattlemen's Beef Association. We get to learn more about things that happen in DC, talk with lawmakers, learn more about policy affecting our industry, and tour and learn more about history behind our capital. This year we got to meet with GT Thompson, chairman of House Committee on Agriculture. That's on the left pick. We were there right before the Farm Bill markup. That is super cool, in my opinion. It was super exciting to see how interested they were to hear from us, even though we are youth. Next, I'm going to hand it over to Lauren to talk more about AQHYA programs.
Good evening. I'm Lauren Goolsby, and I'll be speaking about AQHA's opportunities and programs at your disposal as an AQHYA youth member. AQHYA is dedicated to our horse and our youth. They show this appreciation for our youth through their many programs and opportunities. Diving into some of the program that AQHA offers, I'll start with the horseback riding program. By enrolling in this program, you can earn prizes for doing what we all love most, spending time with our horses. If you don't have a quarter horse, no worries, because AQHA offers an all-breeds division as well. To do this, you simply have to log your hours through the online platform you could find on AQHA's website or by mailing a paper copy of the riding log throughout the year. However, the benefit of logging your hours online is that you can earn the prizes as you reach your hour goals, like the 500-hour prize of an AQHA denim jacket. The AQHA Ranching Heritage Young Horse Development Program is an invaluable and incredible opportunity. In this program, AQHYA members apply annually for the opportunity to be matched with weanlings donated from AQHA Ranching Heritage members. The participants get to raise and train their weanlings, learn more about the industry through the components of horse ownership, life skills, and how to raise and train a horse. This program also offers participants the chance to win prizes and scholarships along the way. It opens up a vast amount of opportunities and educational experiences for young, motivated participants. Next, we have the Youth Racing Experience, which allows AQHYA members the opportunity to see what goes on behind the scenes in the American quarter horse racing industry. In a weekend-long event, this program allows participants to be introduced to this incredible portion of the industry. AQHA state and provincial racing affiliates host these experiences so youth don't have to venture too far from home. If you are interested in racing, this is definitely the event for you. Contact your AQHA racing affiliate to inquire about their next event. Another opportunity that is worth mentioning is the American Quarter Horse Foundation. The foundation is responsible for events at the American Quarter Horse Hall of Fame and Museum, equine-assisted activities, equine therapy initiatives, scholarships, equine research, and American Quarter Horse history preservation. They offer funds and grants for research, and for youth, they offer a great deal of scholarships that would be beneficial to any rising seniors. Since its creation in 1976, the American Quarter Horse Foundation Scholarship Fund has made over 16,000 dreams come true by providing over $9.6 million in financial assistance to youth pursuing higher education. For any of these programs, visit aqha.com for more details. AQHYA governance encompasses the leadership opportunities that are available for youth members. As a regional director myself, I am involved in AQHYA's National Youth Board, and I can help have a say in decisions and pitch in ideas to help better the youth association. As someone who's very passionate about our horse, campaigning and becoming a part of the leadership team has allowed me to have a louder voice in the association. You can join committees that interest you. For example, I'm obviously on the Public Policy Committee, as I was interested in the legislation side of the horse industry. But there are committees such as the World Show Committee, Outreach Committee, International Committee, and Community Service Committee, so you can find your niche and what interests you. There are also ways you can get involved leadership-wise on the state level. Many of AQHA's state affiliates have youth boards to help run and promote their programs and shows. This means that if you do not want to get involved in leadership on the national level, although every youth director will recommend that you do, there are a plethora of opportunities on the state level. You might be wondering, how do I become a director? You have to campaign and run for this position in a process that is held at the Youth Excellence Seminar in Amarillo, Texas. The Bank of America Youth Excellence Seminar, otherwise known as YES, welcomes AQHYA members and non-members ages 10 to 18 to experience this face-to-face event that offers valuable leadership skills, inspiring speakers, and AQHYA governance items. AQHYA officer and director elections will also take place during YES. This is an opportunity for you to meet other youth with passions and ambitions similar to yours, and you get to make friends and meet people from all over the country. This year, YES will be held on July 12th to the 14th. You have to register for this event, so if you're interested, check it out and register as soon as possible. For more information regarding how to run for a position specifically, check out the guide to campaigning on AQHA.com. To hear more or keep up with public policy, make sure to look out for our newsletters and upcoming videos. Feel free to contact us with any questions.
Thank you guys so much for joining us this evening on our 2024 AQHYA Public Policy Committee webinar. We had a lot of fun getting the opportunity to share some of the things that we have been doing this year with you guys, and we hope that if you have any questions, you don't hesitate to reach out. We would love to talk to you more, or if you just are interested in becoming more involved with what we have been doing, let us know, and we will talk to you soon. Thank you.